Bharat Sundaresan over here. My name's Geoff Lemon.
Thank you.
A lifelong West Indies tragic, Bharat, which means
My heart has been broken enough times, so there's no mending it anymore.
There's a point at which you can't be sad anymore, right?
No. That point happened 20 years ago, I think. Yeah, so.
20 years, yeah. I mean, it's 25 years since the last hurrah in 1999.
Exactly, yeah.
But, well, maybe let's just get straight on with what we're doing here
I
today.
think we should, yeah.
All right. So we're going to do a show. It's called Story Time. Because a lot of people like cricket, but they don't know much about cricket. And so what we do is we try to share a few stories about cricket, which mean that, I don't know why this table's reserved and there's no one sitting on it. I think you should just come and sit at it if you want. We've been digging right into the depths of the cricketing world, all the way back to the beginning of it, to find some interesting things that we can tell you. And I don't know, do you want to start things off?
I think I will. Yeah, why not?
Okay,
Let's do this.
So the way we do this show is that people send us in numbers, and the number is random, but we have to figure out a cricket story that relates to the number. What was the number that you started with today?
Well, the number I have started with, and the number also does equate to money, so it's important to say that as well. Yeah,
it's a subscription. It's a voluntary subscription.
Yeah,
so, what have you got?
Well, I'm going to start with 7.80. That's the number.
Okay, so that's $7.80. That means the number is 780. You can take the decimal point out. You can interpret it any way you like. And if somebody said to you, 780, what does that mean in terms of cricket? You would probably say, I wouldn't have a fucking clue.
Exactly.
And then what we do is we go and find an answer to that question. And I don't know what his answers are, and he doesn't know what my answers are. So let's find out. Also, if anybody wants to bring me a beer, that'd be great.
Oh, that'll be good.
Sure,
yeah. Just a pale ale.
Thank you.
We also start with, we have no fucking clue when we see these numbers, but then we dig deep, as you do. 7 for 80 takes us on a journey long back.
Okay.
Long way back to 1936.
So we're talking 7 wickets for 80 runs here.
7 wickets for 80 runs.
Okay.
1936. I can't see anyone who was around in 1936, maybe a couple. So this is India playing England in a test match.
Okay.
At the Oval. So this is when England still ruled India, so it was still British India.
And this is India's first test match in England, isn't it?
This is actually their second tour of England. So they played their first ever test match on English soil in 1932, which is also their first test match at Lord's. So they were invited to Lord's.
Okay.
And then England come back to India, play 3 test matches, starting at the Bombay Gym where we went, Geoff, earlier this year. And so England invite them back. I mean, I don't even know, can you call it an invitation considering they ruled India?
Yeah, they just told them to rock up.
Pretty much ordered the Indian team, or what was the Indian team, to come to England.
It's lucky that there's no lingering resentment from India towards England. It's lucky that they've just, everybody's processed that and it's all fine.
That's where I'm from. Yeah, we love the English.
Yeah, who doesn't? Who doesn't love the English? Am I right?
Especially in this room, I'm sure they all loved England in a way, I guess. No, we don't. So 1936, this is the third of 3 test matches.
Yep.
India had no money. India was in no position to have money. Now England and India play 5 test match series. Back then it was just 3. And the last test is at the Oval. England are 1-0 up, so technically India still have a chance of leveling the series.
Okay, a Jim Carrey style, you're saying there's a chance.
There is a chance, yes, exactly. But it obviously wasn't to be. England pummeled them, as they had previously. But there were some creditable performances, I must say, from the Indians before we even get to 7 for 80, which belonged to Gubby Allen. Of course, everybody here knows Gubby Allen.
Everybody remembers Gubby Allen because he's the guy in Bodyline who wouldn't bowl Bodyline. So they had the 2 who did, and then he was like, no, I'm above this, I'm too good for this. And he just bowled normally. Is that right?
That is correct. And the more I dug into Gubby Allen, I realized that, he was an interesting man, to say the least. He had some interesting views on the world, and I don't think his heart was really in the right place when he said, I won't indulge in Bodyline. So it wasn't one of those, that's not the right thing to do, we can't do that to Sir Don Bradman.
So he was faking it.
He was faking it or the reasons behind him not wanting to do it had nothing to do with the goodness of his heart. We'll come to it.
Okay.
We'll come to it. But, just on 7 for 80, Those were his figures in the second innings of that test match. So just a bit of a recap of what happened all those years ago. England bat first, they make 471 for 8. Wally Hammond makes a double 100, as he used to for fun back then.
Yep.
India bowled out for 222 in the first innings. They follow on and they get to 312. Vijay Merchant makes runs, and that's when Gubby Allen takes 7 for 80. Now, what's significant about Gubby Allen taking 7 for 80 is he was Test captain, and to date, they're still the best bowling figures for an English Test captain.
For an English Test.
English Test captain. I mean, it's obviously number 12th or something in the overall list. But it is still the best figures for an English Test captain, which is quite remarkable considering they've had Ian Botham and Bob Willis and so many others who have led them.
Tony
Gregg as well, like who did take a lot of wickets. But 7 for 80, Gubby Allen. He knocks over India in the second innings, and then England just have to make 64 runs, which they do, and win by 9 wickets to win the series. Now,
like today.
A bit like today, yeah, exactly. Though, I mean, today they need 25 runs and they did not lose a wicket. So, that kind of, as it does often, sent me into a bit of a rabbit hole because I wanted to know more about Gubby Allen. The only thing I did know about him, as you said, Geoff, was the fact that he did not indulge in bodyline, or he said no to Douglas Jardine.
He was the conscientious objector of bodyline.
Is what I thought as well.
Yeah.
And
okay, are you telling me that this is an illusion? Are you about to break this illusion?
I think so. I've done that for a lot of cricketers for you over the years.
Yeah, you've ruined a lot of things.
I certainly have, especially Indian.
Okay, so all right. So are we going to bodyline?
We are going straight to bodyline.
32-33.
32-33.
Right.
And in the 1960s, there was a book written about Gubby Allen, and they featured a lot of letters that he wrote back home during bodyline, and the whole book was about it. And he had a few interesting things to say about Douglas Jardine.
Right. This is like, so when you get somebody's letters published 80 years later, it's like getting the WhatsApp, getting the group chats leaked to a newspaper. Like, it gives you a window into people that maybe their public persona didn't back up.
But where do you think the author got the letters from? It was from Gubby Allen himself. Right. So he wanted, it's not that he was trying to keep these things away. Right. The letters he'd written for 20 years.
Maybe that's what you do late in life. When you know you're about to die, you publish all the WhatsApps.
Maybe he thought he was going
to
die.
Unless you're Boris Johnson, then you can't find it.
And I think Gubby Allen and Boris Johnson, as I tell you more, you'll realize there are more connections than you think.
Okay, all right. This is disappointing already.
So, just on Larwood and Bill Bose, when he was asked, when they walked up to him one day, like this is after the series has started, and they say, hey, why aren't you doing this?
Yeah.
Why aren't you joining us in knocking down Don Bradman and Bert Oldfield and knocking their heads off?
Yep.
And they ask him, are you doing it because you want to be popular? Is that what it is? Do you want to win over the Australians? You're never going to do that. So about that, he writes back to his parents, and he says, when they say it is only because you're keen on your popularity, they being Larwood and Bose.
Sure.
And Gubby Allen apparently said, I burst and said a good deal about those. That said a good deal about those swollen-headed, gutless, uneducated miners.
So there's a little bit of class warfare going on here.
Well, just a little bit,
Am I reading, and I hesitate to put labels on things, am I reading into this that a wealthy English man thought that he was better than working-class Englishmen? I find that hard to believe. That is not what the House of Lords is all about.
Which is exactly why he was president of the MCC for longer than anyone else.
Right.
Exactly the kind of man they wanted.
Okay.
And he would go on to say a lot of other things throughout his illustrious career as MCC president. But just on that, this I found really funny. So he also wrote letters about Douglas Jardine. He was a young man at that point. Don't forget Gubby Allen. He wasn't as old as some of the others. So. One thing
I never understood, just quickly, his nickname's Gubby because his initials were G-O-B. Surely he should be Gobby Allen.
He used to be Gobby.
Which is a much less pleasant nickname.
It used to be Gobby in university and then became Gubby. I think he turned it.
Well, we all went through that phase, didn't we?
I'm sure we did. So, they were gutless, uneducated miners.
Yep.
About Douglas Jardine, he said, Well, he's just a perfect swine, Douglas Jardine.
Perfect swine. That could be a compliment.
It could be.
A perfect swine. There is no pig better than this man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he says Plum Warner, who was obviously the manager of the side, can't even stand the sight of him. He hates him, and a lot of other unsavory things. But the funny thing is, at the end of the tour,
Which is funny because swine is savoury.
it is. Yeah,
By
no,
definition.
correct. That's correct. But the irony in all this is, Douglas Jardine clearly had no idea this is what he was writing back home to his own parents.
Right.
Because Douglas Jardine wrote a letter to Gubby Allen's parents at the end of the tour, in which he said, Gubby is truly a magnificent example to the side and was an excellent tourer in every way. It is crystal clear now as to who was the better man. And this is what Douglas Jardine wrote to Gubby Allen's parents.
Okay.
Unaware that Gubby Allen was completely smashing him.
Yeah, but he's being too complimentary. That sounds like narcissist manipulation to
you
me.
think it is,
Yeah, I think that's what Jardine's up to.
Well, yeah.
Who in this room trusts Douglas Jardine?
Well, that's a good point.
I'm not seeing a lot of hands going in.
I trust the actor who played Douglas Jardine in Bodyline.
Hugo Weaving.
Yeah, he was good.
I don't trust him either. Agent Smith. You never know what he's up to.
So, and then Gubby Allen continued on to be the guy. I mean, he was one of the selectors who decided not to pick Basil D all the way around that infamous tour of South Africa.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah, because he and Arthur Gilligan, former captain, and Peter May's, uncle-in-law, they were part of the, or Arthur Gilligan was part of the British Fascist Society.
Okay, that's a cross rather than a tick. Yeah.
You would think so.
Okay.
So he had a word with Gobby Allen because they were both members of the MCC, and there was secret communication between the Home Secretary of Britain and the South African Prime Minister, who at that point obviously was pro-apartheid.
The South African Prime Minister was pro-apartheid in the 1960s.
You would think so. And also kind of was in touch with the English selectors as to who they can pick and who they can't pick.
Right, okay.
As was the case, yeah. And that was just one of the many examples of Gubby Allen and, the class system that he was very proud of. Not a fan of Fred Truman, dropped him because he felt Fred Truman was too rough around the edges.
Bit too working class.
Yep, bit too working class, much like Larwood and Bose, yeah. Okay. And the amazing thing is he still managed to maintain, it tells you a lot about England more than anything else, and English cricket, that he maintained that MCC president role well into the 1980s when he was 83, at which point he had not one, not two, but 8 positions within the MCC, apart from being president himself.
Wow, okay.
So, I mean, Gubby knew how to run the ship.
Right.
To say the least, yeah. So,
more positions than the Kama Sutra.
Yeah, exactly. And all of a sudden, you just get to know more and more about Gubby Allen. And just 2 more stories about him because I've mentioned India. And I don't know how true this is. This is obviously Indian writers back in the day when they're trying to, kind of pull one up against the English. Apparently, Tiger Pataudi, Mansoor Ali Khan Pataudi, who captained India famously.
Yep.
So apparently, he had just come back from his operation. He obviously had one eye, which was a tiger's eye.
Yes.
That's why it's called Tiger, as we all know. And apparently Gubby Allen was just, and then MCC president looked at him and said, Prince, at what point after your accident did you think you can play cricket again? And then Pataudi, being Pataudi, said, when I saw the makeup of the English attack. So, so well done, Nawab of Pataudi, well done indeed.
Now there's royalty we can get behind, the Nawab of Pataudi.
While I'm on Gubby Allen, I just couldn't help but see the guy, going back to that match at the Oval, the guy who did do well for India.
Yep.
Mohammad Nisar, who took 5 wickets. He took 5 wickets when India played England for the first time in their first ever test match. Took 2 wickets in his first over, in fact. Percy Holmes and Wally Hammond knocked them out. And subsequently, 4, 5, 7 years later when he goes there, what would be his last test, even though he was a young man, but soon after that, World War II broke out, and then India and Pakistan was split up. So Mohammad Nisar was born in Lahore. What was erstwhile India became Pakistan, where we visited 2 years ago. And he has gone, a lot of people feel he was the fastest bowler India ever produced, before speed guns, of course. And
right.
Everybody was talking up everyone back then.
Sure.
But the great Sir Don Bradman did say, 2 fast bowlers he really regretted, or of the 2 fast bowlers he regretted never having faced on Australian conditions, Mohammad Nisar was one. So that's a pretty big compliment if you think about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, in this game he does take a 5-wicket haul in what would be his last spell in Test cricket, and soon after, or not soon after, 10 years later, India and Pakistan split. And I found it fascinating because there were so many cricketers who played for India early doors, but who were born in what would become Pakistan, who kind of got lost in the mix because neither India celebrates them nor Pakistan celebrates them. Because in Pakistan, well, you didn't technically play for Pakistan, you played for India.
Yeah.
And for India, you're like, well, you're not in India, you're in Pakistan. And
yeah.
Unfortunately, Mohammad Nisar, one of probably the early greats of Indian cricket, gets lost in that fashion.
Right, and Gubby Allen is pleased about it because
I'm sure he is.
wasn't quite the right stuff. Who knew that rich English toffs had objectionable politics? I for one, am very surprised. Right, I've got a number for you. I've got a story that starts with the South Australian great. If you're hanging all the way down the back, by the way, why don't you come and sit down here at the
all
front?
these empty tables. Come on,
get homely.
us, yeah.
Come on, get cozy with us. It's story time.
Yeah, we look better from close up.
We're not sitting around a fire because it's too fucking hot, but we would be. We're emotionally sitting around a fire.
Yeah.
There's space down here if you want it. Okay. The number is $6.54. The pledger is Alex McDonald, and so 654. I'm looking for something to do with this, and I wanted to start with Clary Grimit. Now, this number is not really about Clary Grimit, but it starts with Clary Grimit, and this is very South Australian, right? Because the one thing better than a hometown hero is somebody who arrives in your hometown and then adopts it. Like,
thank you.
Clary Grimit is born in New Zealand. He looks around at Dunedin and he says, well, this is shit. He moves to Sydney, he says, well, this sucks. He moves to Melbourne, he goes, not here. He moves to Adelaide and says, yes, this is for me. And he lives out the rest of his life in Adelaide, plays a lot for South Australia in the Sheffield Shield, spends the rest of his life here. He has a little house down in Firle. Do you know where Firle is?
You know the beauty of Clary Grimit, not only do I know where Firle is, there is a shrine to Clary Grimit.
Is there?
It's right outside the Indian store in Firle, which is kind of random. Like,
nice.
So you have a lot of these Indian people buying their dal and their Indian spices and walking past and parking right next to the Clary Grimit shrine.
The Clary Grimit shrine. So he has a practice pitch built in his yard at Firle so he can bowl all day. And I guess when he leaves, then he's unfurled. Maybe that's how it works. But he eventually moves to Kensington Park and he dies as an old man in Kensington Park. Still the highest Sheffield Shield wicket taker of all time with 513 wickets. The great leg spinner who debuted before World War I and ended up playing deep into the 1930s, into the 1940s even. And he bowled like loopy, old-fashioned leg spin. And those kind of bowlers tended to dominate on bad wickets and they tended to go for fucking heaps on good wickets. But he could bowl for such a long time that he'd still take bags. And that was kind of how leg spin works. So his last Shield match is indicative, 11 for 229 in the match. He's like, I'll just keep bowling all day and eventually I'll get him out. They will have made a few. And that links him to another bowler of the same type whose name is Titch Freeman. And if you've heard the show before, you might have heard about Titch Freeman before. He's like 5'2", he's English, he plays for Kent, and he bowls the same kind of stuff. Loopy leg spin, and he takes so many of these kind of big bags for big runs that it gets called a titch. You do a titch if you take like 6 for 150, that's a titch, right? And he debuts in 1914, Clary debuts in 1912. They're kind of similar. Titch Freeman at one point takes 304 wickets in a season, in one first-class season in England, where admittedly they play a million matches. But you might have heard about this on the show before. 7 other seasons he takes over 200 wickets in the season and gets that sort of analysis named after him. But he doesn't get a lot of love as a test player. So he plays 592 first-class matches, 12 of them for England. Doesn't get a lot of a run in test cricket. And I know this is crazy, I know this will come as a surprise, but maybe it has something to do with the fact that he's a professional, so he's a working class cricketer, and the toffs who are running it keep picking these amateur leg spinners who have taken like 5 wickets here or there, and they go, oh yeah, get them in the team, instead of the guy who's doing it year after year. But his test debut comes in this country, in Sydney, in 1924. And he plays another test in early 1925. He goes and plays a match in Western Australia, takes 9 wickets in the match, nobody turns up to watch. He takes three...
Yeah, but they still complain. Was he picked ahead of someone?
Well, it wasn't the school holidays.
Yeah, okay.
It wasn't the school holidays. So how could they go?
Maybe the test squad was announced and Cameron Bancroft was left out.
He takes 3 wickets against the Victorians, 5 against Queensland. In the last fixture before his test debut, he's playing against an Australian 11. And this is a very stacked team. If you are an aficionado of 1920s Australian cricket, you'd recognise some names like Bill Ponsford, Arthur Richardson, Stork Hendry, Percy Hornibrook, Clary Grimit's playing in this team. This is what brings them together. It is a flat fucking pitch, this one. So Freeman takes 6 wickets, and this might be the ultimate Titch analysis here. He gets a bloke out for 50, a bloke for 68, one for 54, another for 114, and then he gets 2 of the tail enders, including Clary Grimit for a duck, which brings them together. Bill Ponsford's there and makes 81. A fella called Fred Tafe makes 86 not out. So they make 526. They're bowling 8 ball overs, 157 8 ball overs. So it's 210 overs in modern speak. And Titch has bowled 53 of these. So he's bowled a 71 over spell in this innings in modern terminology. 6 for 160 the analysis. A perfect Titch. And then the MCC team, they make big runs as well. They make 421, face more than 100 overs. And Clary gets even more Titch figures than Titch. He takes 4 for 176. So it's leg spinner time, right? And this is where things get interesting. The Australian 11, they're leading by 105. It's the last day. There's about 50 overs left to go. There's no time for a result, so they're basically having a net. And they're captained by, the MCC team's captained by JWHT Douglas, whose nickname became Johnny Won't Hit Today Douglas, because he loved to block. But he's captaining the bowling side. He opens the bowling with himself. He bowls his left arm orthodox spinner for a bit. He bowls his leg spinners for a few overs. His other opening bowler gets a bowl. They all bowl 5 overs, maybe 7. And then he says, fuck this for a game of soldiers. He brings on his number 4 for a few overs. Then he brings on the first drop. You might have heard of him. Herbert Sutcliffe made a few runs. Didn't take a lot of wickets. He played 754 first-class matches and took 14 wickets. That's how good a bowler Herb Sutcliffe was. And then Patsy Hendren gets a bowl, and Andy Sandham gets a bowl, who made the first Test 100. None of them are bowlers. Very, very little first-class bowling in their careers. And then Percy Chapman, who almost never bowled. And finally, right at the end, the captain turns to the wicket-keeper and he says, these guys are taking the piss. Get your gloves off. You're sending down an over. So Herbert Strudwick is the wicket-keeper. He's known as Bert to everybody. He is the greatest wicketkeeper in the world at one point. He takes nearly 1,500 first-class dismissals. It's a world record. 674 first-class games in which he bowls 138 deliveries. So he doesn't bowl. It's not a thing. It's only a thing in a situation like this, right? Across a 25-year career, he's bowled like 15 overs. He has a go here. And he's bowling to a guy called Ron Oxenham. And Ron Oxenham is, by my estimation, not very good. He's okay. He's described as the best all-rounder Queensland has ever produced, which is an indictment.
Oh, we know who the best all-rounder Queensland has ever produced. He's on the television behind us. Michael Neeser was just bowling sometime back. Hashtag Neeser must play, of course.
Yeah. Well, I think this assessment was made pre-Michael Neeser and probably pre-Andrew Simons as well. Anyway, 14 Test wickets at 37 and 151 runs at 15. Doesn't really suggest best all-rounder Queensland's ever produced. Decent first-class record. Took his wickets at 18, made his runs at 25. It's okay. But he's facing the wicket-keeper, bowling an 8-ball over. And Strudwick getting on to bowl, he needs someone to take the gloves. And who is the ultimate professional to the point that he's maligned for it? Titch Freeman, the leg spinner, says, give me the gloves, I'll do it. So he gets in behind the stumps. And I mentioned that Titch Freeman got a guy out in the first innings for 54. He did. It was Ron Oxenham. So he's got some runs behind him, Ron. He's feeling good. He's facing the keeper. Second dig. Has to gallop down and have a giant mow at it. Misses the ball. Titch Freeman has the bails off in a flash. He's stumped. And this is unique in all first-class cricket for any player. In the first innings, the scorecard reads, Ron Oxenham, stumped, Strudwick, bowled, Freeman. Second innings, Ron Oxenham, stumped, Freeman, bowled, Strudwick. The only player in history to be stumped and bowled by the same 2 players in an opposite order. It remains Freeman's only first-class stumping in 592 games. and Strudwick's only first-class wicket in 674 matches. The number we were sent was 654. That's the 6 wickets that Titch Freeman took and the 54 that Ron Oxenham made in the first innings of an extraordinary match against the Australian 11.
Well done.
Thank you. And thanks to Carolyn, one of our listeners, who sent me a book that was really hard to find about Titch Freeman, where I was able to track down that story. You've got another number?
Yes, I
can't
do.
remember what
But
it is.
I just realized I haven't still fully revealed how big an asshole Gubby Allen was. So I'm not done yet. Yeah.
Right.
So he also, in 1955, when cricket was trying to grow,
Yep.
and enough white people were playing cricket, so they thought, like, we'll go find countries elsewhere.
Sure.
So they said Ceylon, which is not Sri Lanka yet, and Fiji should be added to what was not the ICC, but whatever the World Cricket was called.
How's the track at Nandi? How's it played?
I wonder, maybe that's what Gubby Allen was wondering as well, because no, we can't. We already have India and Pakistan. We can't add Ceylon and Fiji and
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is Gubby Allen was a massive racist, which is really weird for someone who was friends with people who were part of the British fascist.
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I
So
mean,
basically, I'm just trying to prove that when people celebrate him as being a bodyline hero, or you know what,
stuck to his principles.
Yeah, I know, stuck to
And his principles were white supremacy.
Pretty much. And I don't want to do what the miners were doing. Yeah, that's exactly
sure.
what it is.
Working people are bad, brown people are bad.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a very audacious political platform. He really put himself out there.
But I also found this when I know Nisa always gets stitched up. That's just he does, mate. Are you a follower of the hashtag Nisa must play campaign? Thanks, brother. Thanks. There you go. Love you, brother. Yeah. So just on Gobby Allen. So
I thought for a second you said the most underage cricket in Australia. Like, I think he's pretty old. He's got quite a beard. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Underrated indeed. Yeah. And he will play again. Trust me. I mean, I love Pat Cummins and all that, but he misses the Adelaide Test generally. He should have, and I asked him to, but he did not. Like, yeah. So
okay.
One day, so they're at the Oval. So this is in the 1960s.
We're still on Gubby Allen.
Yeah, people don't know how you. This is a fun story.
This isn't how the show works. You can't just keep doing the past story when you're supposed to do the next story.
You know, I never follow the rules of the show, Geoff Lemon. This is a live show. Let's last Gubby Allen story. So he's at the Oval, and he sat there. He's in his 60s now, NCC president, and he notices something at the other end of the ground, at the Vauxhall end. There's a big board which says XS Insurance.
Okay.
And he's like, oh, what's that? And he asks a couple of Surrey board members sat around him. He's like, what in earth is that? And they turn to him and say, that, Mr. Allen, is 500 fucking pounds because we are fucking broke. So that apparently is the first time any kind of sponsorship appeared on any English test ground. I just thought like that's important enough.
There we go.
There you go. So my second number is 4.47, and it came with a clue.
Okay.
It came with a clue.
So it's $4.47.
$4.
And the clue is?
Yeah, and I'll have to, I should find it. So I think I'm onto something here, but I'll read out the clue first. It came from Calum Evans. It said it's 4.47 in AUD.
I could also read it. I found it.
No, it's right in front of me now.
Okay.
It says, in AUD, although it doesn't relate to Australia in any way, my number relates to 1/2 of the standout performance from the cricketing birth of a new nation.
Right.
I lived in this country as a young child from 2004 to 2008, and my memories of that time are of a country obsessed with the game, scores of children playing in the streets with tape balls and bats cut from banana trees. They've come a long way from the time my pledge relates to, and one hopes they will go even further into the future.
Okay.
So let's just leave 4.47 aside for now.
Yeah, we need a country with banana trees.
Exactly.
Where people are playing cricket.
Absolutely. And which is not a test nation, obviously.
And which has improved.
It's just improved.
Okay.
So I went through every country which has improved in the last 10 years.
Which is not many of them.
Not many of them. And
a lot of banana trees in Afghanistan.
Correct. And,
probably illegal.
Yeah, and as you do it on Google, I just said plus bananas. And the country that stood out was Papua New Guinea. As it would. And apparently bananas are used a lot in Papua New Guinea. They grow a lot of bananas. So, and Papua New Guinea have got ODI status, lost ODI status, got ODI status again. But I think they're right now one of the leading associate countries. So I assumed it had to be Papua New Guinea. So
Right.
what I did was I went back in time to a story I'd done on PNG from 2017 when Greg Campbell, better known as Ricky Ponting's uncle, from Tasmania, played a handful of tests and I think just over 10 ODIs for Australia from Tasmania. Was president of the Papua New Guinea Cricket Board for quite a while. So I remember doing this interview with him, and I mean it was a classic interview where someone from a big cricket nation goes there, and he done a lot for them. His wife became a mother to some of their players, and even then 6 years ago they had nothing. They had no contracts obviously, but 80% of the cricketers came from one town, and everything everywhere else was poverty, and they literally had no kids, they had no shoes, everything was provided. Cricket Australia played a big role, but so did Greg Campbell. But while he was there, what really did stand out for me was they do play cricket now, obviously on the highest level. We've seen them in World Cups, we saw them at the T20 World Cup last year. But they also play another kind of cricket. It's called the Trobriand cricket. It has to do with the Trobriand Islands, I think, which is just off PNG, and I think it's a kind of people. They call the Trobriand people.
Okay.
And so they were always at war back in the day, and as the British do to solve war in countries that they colonize, they introduced cricket. So they introduced cricket, and they said, all right, we need to make sure that, or we think cricket will solve all wars. The tribes won't go to war with each other. Didn't work out like that for quite a while. But then as Papua New Guinea became Papua New Guinea, they just adopted cricket as a form, it became a big cultural thing for them. But they also came up with their own rules. And the rules are brilliant. And they still play Trobriand cricket all around Papua New Guinea. And I want to get behind it. I want to play Trobriand cricket because the first rule of Trobriand cricket is the host always wins. Whatever happens, the host always wins.
Okay. So it's like playing test matches in Australia.
Pretty much, yeah. Or in India, as some would say. Correct. No, and there are some...
The World Cup final, now a best of 7 series.
Oh, wait, is it India-Pakistan? Oh, we'll have an opening ceremony, even though this is the final. So like you do, like cricket was bland for them, like the kind of cricket that England introduced.
I struggle to see how that was.
So they made it their own. So they added dances, and added chanting. So the way a game of Trobriand cricket starts is all the bats and balls are given to a holy man who blesses the bats and the balls.
You're just looking for a job here.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I think I can be a guru of Trobriand cricket. Yeah, completely. And each wicket, and this is all part of the show.
Okay.
So each wicket, you can't just celebrate like your Brett Lee or Shoaib Akhtar.
Sure.
It's a specific dance that you need to, that the opposition kind of indulges in for each batter. So they
a specific dance.
A specific dance. It can't be the same for like...
So like the thing that they do now, which is develop your bowling plans for each player. You look
matchups.
over their tape.
Absolutely.
You work out their strengths and weak. Yeah, we're going to go just outside off stump and we're going to do so you do that, but it's working out a dance that would be appropriate for when they get out.
Properly choreographed. Okay. Like, so if, say, Geoff, I'm playing against you, my people will choreograph a dance to celebrate your wicket.
You'd be fucking stiff if they're not out.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Because,
it's to the end of the innings, you're like, we've had this great bit, and here you are, red ink,
But the beauty is, like you said, you want to get out because some of these dances can also have sexual and erotic innuendo themes. So, well, that will tell a lot. I think that says a lot about what they think of you, I guess.
So you get a Gobby Allen on the way.
Yeah, pretty much, indeed. Yeah. So bowling is always underarm. The visiting team, the home team always wins, but the visiting team always bats first. But that doesn't help because each over you swap. So 1 over I bat, 1 over you bat.
Okay.
But every over, so the umpire is always from the batting team. So the batting team has an umpire, and there's no fixed number of players per team, so it can be 40, 50 players, and each with their own dance. So
How's the over rate?
better than Test cricket, I think. And nobody, I mean, there's no trophy, there's no Ashes urn, there's no Frank Worrell trophy which comes apart. Instead, the home team just...
There is a Wank Forrell trophy.
That's correct. What they do is they just throw a big feast. So it's pretty much like every journalist game I ever played in Mumbai where we lost, but we got medals and we got a feast. So I think I have played a form of Trobriand cricket, and I think more than anything else, I know it has nothing to do with 4.47. Maybe that is the over rate. 4.47, maybe, I'm going to tell Josh, is the over rate in Trobriand cricket. I just made that up right there, but yeah, because I have nothing for the number. I'm sorry.
That is the most Bharat answer of all time. I've got 20 minutes of completely random bullshit.
Hey,
it's
come
not
on.
relevant, but it is interesting.
I want to play a cricket match where I get out and there's an erotic dance, done to celebrate my wicket. Why not? Who here doesn't want that?
I love that. There's the kind they play in Samoa as well called Kili Kiti with the big clubs. They like cut a club out of the palm trees and the ball's made of like a rubber twine that they bind up, and they have a concrete slab for a pitch, and everyone in the village fields. I've seen this play. Everyone's a fielder. So you whack it over 3 rows of houses and somebody over there takes a catch and you're gone. You're like, sorry, you're on your way. It's tremendous. Absolutely belt the shit out of it.
And you can only hit a 6 in Trobriand cricket.
Yeah.
The ball is lost. I mean, they'll search for the ball, and after 10, 15 minutes, if they can't find the ball, then the umpire signals 6. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right, I've got one more. It's from Nick Dempsey. It's $5.19. Thank you, Glenn. And 519 is the number. And this brings me back to a story I've been interested in telling for quite some time. Let's go back to 1817.
As you do.
Why not? To Oxfordshire, when I was going to say a young man, but he's a baby at this point. A very, very young, putative man. A cocoon man. Charles Absalon is born in 1817 in Oxfordshire. He dies in 1908 at the age of 90. Wow. He finishes his cricket career in 1897, having already turned 80 by the time he stops playing local cricket. He plays his first match at the age of 14. So he plays cricket at a fairly good level for 66 years. He is thought to have played the most matches of cricket by anyone in history of all time, Charles Absalon, and he is an absolute freak. He is fit, he is never injured, and he just wants to play games of cricket. He begs matches from any club that will have him. He travels anywhere that a game is on. He's known to play often 2 and sometimes 3 matches in the same day. If something wraps up early, he rocks up to the next club and says, "Need a spare?" and gets a gig over there. His list of clubs played for is like longer than Dirk Nannis's.
Wait, he sounds like Manas Labuschagne 30 years from now.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. So he's a butcher by trade. So he does have a job, he does work. But he's prominent in the campaign for employers in the 1860s to give Saturday afternoons off, because he wants to play cricket on Saturday afternoons. So he becomes a union leader purely so he can play more cricket, because he wants a half day on a Saturday, and then he gets everyone at the meatworks to join his cricket team, and they all take a horse and cart down to the field and play on Saturday afternoons. This guy is keen. He is on the spares WhatsApp chat, and he is ready to go. So, and he plays local level, he plays clubs, he plays, anyone will have him. He never goes pro, he never quite plays first class cricket, but he plays some of the county adjacent stuff like Gentlemen of Middlesex or things like that, youth teams. He's kind of around and about, but never quite decides to make it to the top level. Decent defensive kind of batter, very patient. He makes his first recorded century at the age of 16 for one of the local clubs, and he bowls lobs, so he bowls underarm fizzy stuff, but not sort of shitty lobs. He bowls skillful lobs. He does creepy things with the ball. He can make it turn. He can bowl a quick one. He can make them jump. And he takes wickets in absolute avalanches, this bloke, by just underarming it down to the other end. He's a hero in so many ways. And the great thing is we do not have any stats for the first half of his playing career, because it just wasn't kept at that level at the time. So there's about 35 years that we don't have. And the only point where we start getting stats is for the last 30 seasons of his playing career. from 1868 to 1897, between the ages of 50 and 80, he makes over 26,000 runs and takes 8,500 wickets in less than half of his playing career. His most prolific season at the age of 55, he takes 519 wickets in the season. Our number was $5.19. Bing. The span from the age of 50 to the age of 80 includes 59 hat tricks. 59 hat tricks. Yes.
Don't tell Adam Collins that, please.
He wouldn't have seen any of them. Now, there are 12 different seasons where he makes over 1,000 runs and takes over 200 wickets. In a game for a team called Wood Green in 1872, which is right next to where Adam lives,
that's
actually.
correct, actually.
Yeah, the next tube stop down the line. In this game, against a team of 20, so they're playing 20 per innings, he takes 18 wickets and catches the other 2. At one point he plays for a team called the United Master Butchers, not the Masturbators, but the Master Butchers, against a team called Walham Green. They have 20 players. Absalon, Charlie, takes the first 9 wickets and his team bowls out the opposition for 4. 20 wickets for 4. And at the age of 67, he carries his bat through an innings and then takes 8 wickets when they go on to bowl. He is fucking ridiculous. At one stage, because he's quite good, he plays in this exhibition game, and he's playing in a 12, and they're playing against the 3 best cricketers in the country at the time. W.G. Grace, Walter Gilbert, and Harry Charlwood are the 3. And the rules are, because there's only 3 playing, you've got to hit boundaries, you can't leave the wicket, and you've got to hit in front of the wicket. The 3 best players in the land, bowl out these 12 guys for a score of 15. 15. And then Charlie fucking wins it because he gets them all out for less than 15. With his lobs. He gets W.G. Grace out with lobs. He is absolutely ridiculous. He does just about everything. At the age of 51, he plays the Aboriginal team that toured England in 1868. Oh, wow. Twice. Because why not? He's Charlie Absalon. He does what he wants. So the team that toured, we had the 150th anniversary recently, and there's the Discovery Centre down at Harrow that tracks their story. He played against them for the Gentlemen of Middlesex and the Gentlemen of Surrey. He's like, why not? I'll give you a gentleman wherever I want. Sure, some people play for one county. I'll just play for whatever I want. This is the best, my favourite bit of the Charlie Absalon story. In 1875, at the age of 58 years old, he plays for the Middlesex Young Cricketers versus the Surrey Young Cricketers. In a match of 13 players aside, criminally, they do not let him bowl. He bats at 13. He's not out in both innings and takes 3 catches. You can't keep him out of the game. And his final season, when he turns 80 halfway through the season, he's batting with a runner by this point, and he's fielding at slip, and he's still catching them, and he's still bowling lobs. He still takes over 100 wickets in the season at 80 fucking years old. He's the most can't stop, won't stop cricketer of all time. He is Charlie Absalon, and that is our number for 519.
Beautiful. I don't remember interviewing 80-year-old cricketer during the 2019 World Cup.
Yep.
Originally from Barbados, he still was playing club cricket then. Yeah, but he was not bowling lobs. He was still running in and bowling. Yeah. So.
Well, we interviewed Enid Bakewell about 6 months ago in England, who was one of the great women's test players. She's one of the 5 cricketers to take 10 wickets and make a century in a test match. Did that in her last test too, just on the way out.
You do. Yeah.
See you later. She was 82, I think, and she's still playing, and she's bowling lobs. She's got permission from the MCC to bowl underarm because she can't get the arm over the top anymore. And she kept wicket the last time. She came down here a couple of years ago and was keeping in her early 80s. Why not?
You think people will talk
You've got to stay active, she said.
Yeah, I know. Do you think people will talk about the same way when we cover a test match and we're 83 years old? I wonder, yeah.
Please, shoot me in the back of the head if that is the case.
We can shoot each other at that point.
We will. We'll go out together, as we would have wanted. I think that's it. I think that's story time. I think have we not told some stories?
Yeah, I know, exactly, yeah.
Thanks to Bharat Sundaresan for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks to the ARC for having us. Jordan, Anthony, setting everything up today.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And thanks for taking an evening at the pub to listen to some idiots ramble on about some things that you may or may not have been interested in. You might have just got stuck here.
Yeah.
You came in for a quiet one, and you're too polite
And we
to
have
leave.
converted you. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you want to know more about Trobriand cricket and Charlie Absalon. That's what we do.
Well, if you didn't know what we were on about, the final word is the show. Story time is the sub-show of the show. And you can figure out the rest from there. This was 166, episode 166. So there are 165 previous episodes that are slightly less loud and slightly more recorded in recording conditions
That is correct.
than this one. That's it from us. Thanks for listening. Good night.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.